here's my first disclaimer. If you have never used alcohol inks before, there's some solutions and things you should use. This is 91% isopropyl alcohol. And some people even use 99%, but 91% from what I understand works just fine. There's blending solution from Tim Holtz and Ranger, alcohol blending solution. I use both of these things a lot. And they have, especially the alcohol is very strong. They recommend you have a window open. You should have a fan going. I do not have a fan going tonight because it would be way too loud. So they recommend all of these things. You really should not breathe any more of these solutions than you have to into your lungs. So that's the first disclaimer. Also, do not, they say over and over again, do not put your alcohol into a sprayer or a mister and spray it in the air. You should not let it go airborne. So those are kind of some of the hazardous things about them. I will tell you also today I will be using, and these are the ones that I have, that Kelly, one of the reasons I decided to do this live tonight was because Kelly now has, Melissa says she's killed all of her brain cells with her Copics. And that's true. Just don't spray them in the air. Anyway, Kelly just got in Bria Reese, I think is the name, alcohol inks. And I have not used those. But since she has those in the store, and she might have a couple of the Tim Holtz Ranger alcohol inks. So I thought it would be fun, since those are new, to work on some alcohol inks together. So I'm using Ranger alcohol inks. I like, and we can talk about this later, the Jacquard Pinata metallics better than the Rangers, personally. This is just my opinion. And I have some of the Pinata inks, and they're very vivid, very, very bright and concentrated. And I also have the white Blanco Pinata, and we may or may not use this. So Tim Holtz even says these bottles are made so that you can take the lids off and sit them, and it's just fine while you're working to leave the lids off. The bottles are made specifically for that. Bonnie says wear a mask. You can wear a mask if you want to. Some people do. I don't. That's just me. That's my disclaimer. You can do what you want. I leave the lids off, and even on my blending solution, and I put my alcohol, I bought these little bottles from Amazon, and I put my alcohol in these. They have the little tiny needle top with the stopper, and it's a much more controlled way to use your alcohol. Other tools some people use are droppers. I use this to fill this bottle. Some people use straws. I've used a straw. Some people use, it cleans the lenses. It's like an air blower that cleans the lenses of a camera. I've used that too. And some people even use the lowest heat setting, the coolest setting of a hairdryer. I tried that, and I about blew everything off my table today, so it didn't work for me. Some people use an air can, like to clean your computers. I am going to be using today this somewhat inexpensive, it just depends on how much you're willing to spend. This is, what do you call these? Like an air gun, air compressor, a very small air compressor. My husband bought it for me at Harbor Freight, and I think it was about $80. And honestly, the reason I got this was because I'm taking a class. I have taken a class. I believe it's from Jeannie Oliver Art, and the instructor for the alcohol ink class was Noelle Mina. And so I encourage you to check that out because she was fabulous. And Noelle taught me a lot of these things, and she uses a small air compressor. And so you'll hear it going in the background, and I apologize. It's the only way. I like a very light flowy, soft look. And Dana says she has one for nails. Great, Dana, get it out because it's fabulous. So oh, hi Sheila. Sheila's here too. Let's go ahead and stop talking and get started. So what you'll see me do, I believe the alcohol blending solution has glycerin in it combined with other things. And you'll see it blends the ink a little differently than the alcohol. So this is how I normally do it. I will put down, and we have to work quickly, as you know. I put down some blending solution, and I can't remember what colors I really wanted to use. Let's try a drop of this. This is Stream from Ranger, and then I take the alcohol and I kind of go around the blending solution, okay? And we need to work quickly, and I spray up in the air, and then I take the air to my paper, and you see I have it on a Lazy Susan so that sometimes I can really move it to work it quickly because you only have so much time with alcohol inks before they dry. And what we're trying to do is control something that pretty much tries to be uncontrollable at times. So nice, steady, even air. Okay? And you need to work until it starts to dry, and then you'll see it kind of moving more slowly. And once it gets to that point, I kind of stop. And I apologize, I just don't know about these lights and what's going to work best tonight. So we'll see. I'll have to ask my husband how we can fix that. So while this is, you see this is still wet, kind of right in here. I'm going to go ahead and take some alcohol and let's see what happens. We have to figure out, we have to learn what happens with the different materials. So when we use the alcohol, it kind of I'm trying to think of the word. It reactivates it. And we can get it to flow and move a little bit. But now I'll tell you, can you see these little squigglies that came off? I don't like those. It needs to be a more controlled airflow, okay? So the air comes away and then it goes back to it. And you see how it starts to dry? You're going to get these, see, there we go. See, this is where it's hard to see on these lights. Let me pick it up. See that? I don't like that. But here's what we can do. This is what's really neat about alcohol inks. If you have something like that doesn't work, hi Kathy. I hope you can see it. You can take a stiff paintbrush. You can take, I have these little felt squares, rectangles from Ranger. I put a little bit of alcohol on there, and I'm just going to use the tip of my finger and kind of, we can literally kind of erase that away. And by the way, I didn't mention, I'm using Yupo paper. There's a more lightweight Yupo paper on Amazon. I believe it's got an orange cover. Can you see that? It stained the Yupo, which is actually a plastic. It's not even paper, but it took the majority of it away. So we could go back and work over that area. Basically, it acts like a slight eraser. And some colors are so light, the pigment is so pale that it won't really stain your paper. So now I'll tell you what I begin to like are these really light, airy places. And I really like to create that. And here's this is my opinion on alcohol ink art. The white space is good. Light, flowy, soft is good. sometimes, so I tend to go drop by drop. You'll see other people, they just put a whole bunch of drops on and move it around and the whole page is covered. And that's fine if that's what you like. It's not personally my style and what I like. What drew me to alcohol ink art was the very light, flowy, soft, with lots of white space. So it's hard for me to remember that, but I try. We want light colors and I want some white space. So I'm putting blending solution down. I'm going to put some alcohol around it. And let's see what happens if we add, this is turquoise. 2 drops. I'm putting my air up above, and then I'm going to take it down and move. And I'm moving around. Now, I don't know if you can see this little darker area here and these areas here. What I think, don't quote me, is happening, I think that is where the glycerin gathers with the ink and it almost becomes more chunky is the best way. As it starts to dry, it almost congeals and then it's harder to move those around. So that's another reason you have to understand what the blending solution does and what alcohol does. Alcohol, now watch, when I put this down, if I put this alcohol here, it's going to move the ink that way. It pushes it away. But once we get the air gun out and get it mixed and moving, then it will spread. And you also have to learn how the inks begin to move. And when we put 2 colors together and they start to overlap, it causes, Noelle calls it a fold. And I think that's a good term for it. And I like folds. Let me show you. Right away, I like this one. And it's not even quite a fold there. This is becoming a fold right there as it dries. But you have to decide what you like in your work. I like this. I told you I did not like these little harsh wispies. I also do not like really hard edges. So we will obviously work to soften those. I wouldn't mind a bigger white space in here either. I think little white pockets are pretty. They look good. They add interest and dimension. I'm actually putting a little bit of alcohol on my Lazy Susan and it helps actually stick my paper down so I can turn it more easily. So I am going to, let's add a little bit more here. Blending solution, a little bit of alcohol to mix in for a little bit more flow. And let's add a drop of the stream. Highly pigmented, you see that. So up above I add the air and then I take the air down to it and I start moving it. And you'll have, if you get an air compressor, you have to play with it. If I take it and just do a steady stream, you see how it moves. If I wiggle, it kind of creates these little rivers. Or I wouldn't say a river, it almost creates a little tide current. So you have to play with it and be patient to see what you can create. I'm kind of controlling this little channel right here. But now see, because I wasn't careful, it made that little splatter. But I think I'm liking that. And sometimes we need to sit back and let the alcohol do what it wants to do. Sometimes I get impatient and I just keep working it and working it. But if we just sit back and wait, sometimes it's pretty too. Okay, so we have to keep that in mind. I like these two colors together, the stream and the turquoise. I think those are pretty together. Alcohol around it. And I'm going to do another drop of stream over here, too. Air up above. Then moving it around, getting it to blend with the solution and the alcohol. I want some to go down. And then I'm going to try to get some to go up. And I do like to try and create some folds, because especially if I'm trying to create the look of water, which is what I'm going for tonight, I like the movement and the ripples, just like real water would have. And then what I'm doing when the ink won't move on its own, I'm just kind of drying it a little bit, and I'm speeding up the process. Melissa says, do you think we need a compressor? I will tell you, there are people out there, a lot of them who use straws, but honestly, I could not get the look that I wanted until I got the air compressor. I just couldn't. So if someone else can do that, that's fabulous. I will tell you, I think the biggest mistake a lot of people make is that they use too much ink. Hands down, number one, because I tend to do that. So I think if you're very light-handed with the ink, and you're really patient and slowly figure out what works for you, maybe you don't need the compressor. I honestly don't know. This is Bottle. I love this color. Watch what happens. It's a greenish color. I'm going to take the air here, and now around. Getting it to mix. Taking it all the way down as much as I can. While it's still somewhat wet, I want to add some more alcohol. Get that flowy. I want some here. Now I'm really trying to get the wispiness. Slow air pressure. Can you see that moving at the top? Oh, that's what I love. I love the way these greens and blues move together. It also helps to take the air compressor and move the air around above your face to get the smell of the alcohol. Can you see this moving? I know these lights, they're driving me crazy. You can't see it. We're going to have to work on the lighting here. I'm going to pick this up so you can see where we are. And I think that this is a test in patience, because you have to keep working until you love what you have. I do like this at the top. That, can you see that light, flowy? That's part of the look I want. I don't like right now this big kind of green plain area. We need some more dimension. We need to soften even this a little bit more at the top. Because if you think about the ocean, you have the light coming from the top, and the topmost part of the ocean is, or even the sky, is lighter, almost bright white, and then it gets darker as you go deeper. So that's somewhat of the effect I'm going for. So I'm going to add even more alcohol here, a lot right there. And then let's work that. And as I go, you'll see if I go straight across my paper, it's going to add folds that almost look like currents in the water. So I kind of like that. I want these blues and greens to mix, which is what's happening over here, and I love it. I actually want even a little bit more. I think what's happening now is the paper has been stained a little bit up here. So I don't know how much I could remove from that. So I'm going to leave it and we'll maybe just push the color down a little bit more. And then I'm okay with it. And the other thing that, that is really interesting, and I think we might see it. You can also use alcohol ink refills for Copic marker, your Copic marker refills. Noelle uses a lot of Copic colors, and what's really neat is those more so than these Ranger colors. When you put a drop of ink and you put the blending solution and the alcohol ink with it, you'll see the colors that were mixed to form one color start to separate, and these fine airy kind of magical areas, the colors separate and it looks so soft and ethereal, and I love it. So actually it's a good excuse to buy some Copic refills, and I can't wait to try that. So here's a good thing here. We created a fold which added interest here, and this is more interesting up here, but I still want to play with this a little bit. And so let's see what we can do. Let's add a little bit of blending solution right along there. Add a little bit of alcohol ink in there too. And let's add another drop of bottle, if I can find it. There it is. Right there. I love this color of bottle with these other colors. A little bit of alcohol. Now I have to tell you right here, I'm not liking this. I could take this, I could pour a bunch of alcohol on here and erase it, but I like what's going on up here, so I don't really want to erase that. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep trying to play with this and see what we can do. Sometimes it creates a big mess. And it's like I said, we're trying to control something uncontrollable right now. And I honestly don't know how it's going to work. I might hate this. Sometimes it's a matter of just keep going. Just keep blending, just keep adding, and see what happens. So now I might add, let's add some turquoise in with this green and see what happens. I want those two to mix, but not totally mix. I like for the colors to keep some of their own integrity. And once again, let's wait and see. See, that almost created too much here. I'm waiting to see what it's doing, where it wants to go. Let's help it. This is getting too green. Let's move it some more. Blending solution there. Now, one other thing to keep in mind as you add alcohol, it almost dulls it a little bit as it dries. But that's okay, because the dilution is what creates the effect that I like, that airiness up here. So I'm okay with it looking a little dull, because we're going to stamp on it and we're going to do other things with it. And if we were really creating a piece of art and we coated it with resin, it would obviously be a beautiful glassy shine on top. And so the dullness obviously wouldn't bother us then. I'm still trying to figure this out. I'm going to go in with more alcohol here, move that green down just a little bit, create another fold, some interest. Sometimes this is what we need to do. We just need to keep going across and adding some of these currents and see what happens. Let's do it all the way across here. It moves the ink away from itself from here. The alcohol does. I don't know if you could see the way that broke up that top line, because I don't like those harsh lines. Adding that alcohol up here softened that harsh line right there. And I love the way the green flowed up into there. So let's keep going down here and add a very little line right here and see what we can do with that. Now I'm liking that so much better. Much better, I think. I like the way the blues and the greens have combined right there. I think that's really pretty. So let's add just a little bit more here, but not too much. This will be some solution, some turquoise. Let's even do a little bit of alcohol in there. Blending solution, alcohol, color. I'm letting the ink flow back into itself. Okay, hi Sharon, I didn't see you there, hi. So I'm letting the color, see it goes back into itself. That's where being patient sometimes, and then I'm going to move it back down to give it some more dimension. Sometimes we have to see where it wants to go, and it knows better. I love that on that side. Love it. I think I need some, oh, this is where I get worried that I'm going to mess it up. Blending solution, alcohol, drop. And yes, Amy, I think I saw you say, so it's layer, layer, layer. Absolutely. And see right there, I've loosed too much of the color off, so I'm going to blow it back on there. Now let it work. Kind of drying it a little bit. Sharon says it's hypnotizing. Well, I'm a little loopy from the alcohol, so yeah, I'm pretty hypnotized too. Whew. The fumes are strong in here. Okay. Let me pick this up. I still want a little bit more here, but this is where I need to remember what our final outcome is going to be and what we're doing. I want to stamp on this. I want to stamp in a way that we don't lose the beauty of the alcohol ink background, because to me, that's almost the most important part. And it's so pretty and ethereal. We're going to stamp on this, but I need to remember I can stamp down here to add a little bit of interest, and then I won't feel badly that it's covering up some beautiful alcohol ink art that we created. So let's see if we can see. Can you see the top of that? With the folds, and I might even soften that a little. I might kick myself because it might mess it up. And then there's the bottom. And I'll still tell you, it has too much ink for me. In a perfect world, it would be even more soft, more ethereal, but I kept adding in color. So to me, this is still not perfect. And I tell you what I could do if I wanted to. I could put alcohol over this whole thing and we could start all the way over. I'm not going to do that to you. That's the nice part of Yupo. It's plastic. You can erase it and you can start all the way over again and again and again and again. And I love that about Yupo. I did that a couple different times today with some different sheets. So keep that in mind. That's the genius of Yupo. I don't know if you can see on the top, but some of the yellow from the green did come out at the top. And that's pretty cool. Okay, I am going to, now here's the other thing. I'm going to use my heat gun, but this is plastic paper. This is flammable. So I'm going to heat it a little bit, take it away. Heat it a little bit to dry it. I'm just trying to get it dry quickly for us. But we don't want to, A, warp our paper because it's plastic. And I mean, I've been doing this all day and I didn't have any problems with catching anything on fire. So I'm not worried about that. But I do not want my paper to warp. There is also something I didn't say earlier. There is, and I think I have it here. I'll show you. There's also a heavy Yupo paper. I think the heavy has the purple cover and it says heavy on it. From what I understand, the people who use the cool setting on blow dryers, they use the heavy and they don't have a problem with it warping. Or if it starts to warp, from what I understand, someone said it just went right back down. So I have the heavy. I haven't used it yet. And like I said, I tried to use a blow dryer today and it about blew everything away. So the blow dryer does not work for me. I've used a straw. I've used the air can. I've used the camera lens cleaner. And nothing gave me this more light, airy effect that I like other than the air compressor. I'm just telling you my opinion. So I'm drying this as much as possible, and then we're going to stamp. And I have to tell you, the reason I wanted to do the ocean is because I got the Lavinia stamp Sebastian, and so I had to use him. Marcia on our design team showed a beautiful stamp she created of Sebastian the other day. I've seen Lavinia design team members stamp, and I watched a video from, I think her name is Tracy, the artist from Lavinia. And this is why it's important. I think sometimes we forget to watch the videos when an artist does a release, because she shared some tips with some of the ocean stamps. And so I'll share those with you. And it was good to know. Good things. So let me now put the lids on since we're finished. Let me put the lids on all of our inks and the alcohol. Does anybody, are there any questions while I'm putting the lids on that maybe anybody have any questions? And yes, Amy, it's patience. And I think for a long time, I wanted to throw down all the ink and I wanted to see these beautiful artistic things, and I wasn't getting what I wanted. And so that's why I also took the class from Jeannie Oliver and Noelle Mina. And I'm glad that I did, because I learned so much, and it is really about being patient and working the ink and not being too heavy-handed. Sky says the ocean is always good. Absolutely. So here's this, and I'm looking, there's my Misty. Here's what I found also. Tracy, T and I were talking today, and she said she tried to make alcohol ink backgrounds for her ATCs, and the ink smeared, or she tried to fix it and it just didn't want to work. And what I found is, because of course I tried to go right to my VersaFine Clear ink, on the alcohol ink background it doesn't work. And I'm sure it's the makeup. It's kind of like we need to use the opposite ink for whatever medium we're using. For instance, we need a dye ink like Memento if we are coloring with our Copics, and the VersaFine Clairs work well if we're watercoloring. So I did a little bit of research quickly today because I stamped first with VersaFine Clair and it was a complete mess. And it wouldn't dry and it smeared and I couldn't fix it. And so then I tried dye inks because I tried the opposite, and actually most of the dye inks didn't work either. So what I finally figured out is that I used, trying to think, oh, I know. I pulled up Ranger Archival ink, and it said it would work with alcohol inks. And so I tried it, and yes, it does. So that's what I'm using. So this is Archival Cobalt. And I have Sebastian in my Misty. And, you know, sometimes I don't use the Misty, but sometimes I found in stamping this, I might have to stamp it again. So this is the safest bet. And what I like about the Archival ink is it dries very quickly on, so it doesn't smear. I will say this is not a kiss technique. You have to really push it. Tracy says the artist is Tracy Dutton, and she does great tutorials on YouTube, and she does. She is the artist behind Lavinia. Well, Liz, I'll tell you, it actually doesn't quite work the same. I did try to stamp with other inks that work with Copics, I think. I couldn't find my Memento Black, so that's the problem. And they didn't work. Archival was the only ink, actually, that I tested that worked. Yay, one stamp. We're good. Okay. I'm happy with that. I used cobalt and not black. And I tell you, I practiced this today. I finally decided that I liked the cobalt because the black was too harsh and it covered up too much of our beautiful background. And so this way it maintains the integrity of it. Melissa says dye inks don't normally stamp well on top of other things. So, and I think the Yupo paper, remember, it's plastic. That might be why also that it did not want to dry. So the Archival specifically said that it would work over alcohol and of course on plastics and things like that. So, and it does. I'm heat setting it every time I stamp something. I'm heat setting it. And Ranger does say that you need to heat set Archival ink for it to be permanent. And so I like that this blue doesn't it kind of goes with the greens and the blues in our background. And it looks pretty over it, but it's not detracting from it. Thanks, Tracy. So there's Sebastian. Now, this is what's cool. I did purchase, they're sticking together. Let me see what they're called. I purchased the seaweed stamps also. And one of mine, for some reason, has an indentation. And so, of course, that doesn't stamp there. But this is the trick that I learned from Tracy in her video. She designed these so that you can use them one way and then flip them over and use them the other way so that you don't have all your designs going the same way and it looks monotonous. So it looks more organic because you have things going different ways when you flip it back and forth. So I thought that was a good tip. I will tell you, I really like, once again, I like this green color. This is emerald green because it goes with the bottle color that we used. And it kind of adds to the background, and it adds to the blue, pulls in the green from up above. And this is, now my paper's kind of warped a little bit from the heat. This is more of a kiss technique. Just a little press and then pull it up. And it's very soft. Now I'm going to flip it to use the other way. And it will move on the Yupo paper, so be careful. And I could also use a shadow, second generation stamp. So be careful, and when you set it down, you don't want it to move. I'm going to turn it around. That one didn't stamp as well, but I could feel it moving, so I'm okay with that. I'm okay. Okay. Now, this is kind of cool, and I think I may have seen Tracy do this in her video, or I saw someone else do it, but this is actually trees. And of course, you know, a lot of the Lavinia stamps look similar to this. This is a small one, tree scene, and if we stamp this, and I'm going to use, this is coffee, it actually looks like coral. And I'm just going to do this a little bit because, once again, I don't want to detract from our scene too much. But I'm going to put it right down here. And this one, for some reason, I really have to push this one a little bit. Can you see that? It actually kind of looks like coral, and it's just the top of our tree stamp. So I thought that was genius, and it's a way to use our other stamps in a different way, which of course is always awesome. And I like using this brown because, once again, it kind of goes along with some of the browns that were pulled out of our bottle color. And yeah, it doesn't take away from our background. And remember, the bottom wasn't that interesting because there weren't very many folds in the ink. So it's okay that we're adding these. Can you see that? It just looks like coral. We could add other colors, but I really wanted it to look very soft and organic and not detract from Sebastian or, now one other one that I did think, this might be going overboard and I tend to do that, but this is the moss foliage, and I thought maybe if we want to try just a little pop of color, we could try this one. I'll use it on the other side. And let's see what happens. We might hate it. I might ruin it. I don't know. And this color is plum. Do I do it? Let's take a vote. I don't know. I'm kind of worried. Do I leave it the way it is, or do I add a pop of color with this plum and this little wispy? How about I stamp it on something and we see what we think? I just have some little post-it notes here. Do we add that in? Yay or nay? You tell me. I kind of like that stamp. I hadn't used it yet. That's pretty. Do we want that? Dana says, do it. Oh, Dana, you're so brave. What's everybody else think? Melissa says do it too. Okay. Let's go. We'll just add one and see how it goes. There. I love it. Okay. We were brave and you guys were right. I like that. It needed that pop of color at the bottom, didn't it? I thought it did. Sometimes we get so worried about messing things up. Oh, I felt that one move. That was close. That paper is so slippery. Okay. I think you guys were right. Mel, we knew you would love it. Tracy, I have to tell you, I was holding my breath. I was really not so sure about that one. But I do like it. It needed that. So here we go. Let's stamp our sentiment at the top. Now I have to tell you guys, this piece of Yupo paper is 4.5 by 6. So you have to understand how big Sebastian is. Once again, that's why I always measure and look at the measurements of the stamps, because they're bigger than we think. So I better get the lid on this. So we're going to have to either cut down or really keep in mind. And the problem is I have Dream Higher Than the Sky and Deeper Than the Ocean. This is from Lavinia also. I love this. And I bought it specifically for Sebastian. And Dana says, we're always right. And so I'm going to bring it down by Sebastian, so knowing that I'm probably going to trim this down. But look at the width, guys. That's 4.5. And I don't have much wiggle room there. So we might have to, if someone knows the sizes of the bigger than A2 cards, I forget what they are. But this might just have to be one of those bigger cards if you want this sentiment on it. So I used this earlier today and I liked it. It's called Aquamarine. And with these lights being difficult the way that they are, earlier you couldn't see it once I stamped it. I'm going to pull this down to the bottom so that I can see where I am. And let's hope it shows up. This is a medium press. It's not a kiss, and I'm not giving it all my strength. There. It's very soft. Can you see it? Dream higher than the sky and deeper than the ocean. And I didn't want it to take away from Sebastian. So that's why I did that I almost wanted it to look like part of the water, part of the top of the ocean. And that's why I did such a very light, soft, dreamy kind of color there. That was my reason. Yeah, Katya says she got one of the dragons and it was teeny tiny. Yes, it's like this. They're like this big around. They're teeny tiny. I used the little tiny dragon in one of my ATCs, and it goes perfectly with the castle that's only about like that big. Then it's in the correct proportion for the little castle. So if you get the little dragon, get the little castle. But there's a bigger dragon because we all, some of their scenes that Lavinia creates are very large and probably like 8 by 10 and could be hung on the wall. So there we go. There's our alcohol ink background, and I hope you guys liked it and that you learned something. I hope I had something to share. I love the light ethereal artsiness. I actually like there to be more white space than what we even did on here. I need to heat set my archival ink. If you have any questions, you guys can ask while we have just a couple seconds. But other than that, I'm finished. So if you have other questions about alcohol ink, or if you get the new Bria Reese from the store, let me know. Also, if you have the Copic refills at home, let me know how those work. I think some of the colors you can get when you add the alcohol and they separate are just gorgeous. So, let me know. Thanks, T. I had fun with this one. I love alcohol ink, and I had been practicing and just wanted to wait until I felt like I really had something to share before we went live with it. So, thanks, Dana. Yupo paper you can get on Amazon. I buy the big pads and I cut it down. It's cheaper that way than buying like just the small pads. Kelly might have Yupo paper in the store too, now that I think about it. I'm not sure. Thanks, Liz. Thanks, Mel. Okay, thanks, everybody. Melissa, you are not live on Saturday. Is that correct? Because you're on a crafty girls' weekend. And don't forget, Saturday morning is the last. Get your pixies tomorrow. Be safe for Sweet November. And then be on the lookout August 1st for the new Sweet November release. You wait till you see it, guys. Oh, Melissa says Kelly she has some of the Tim Holtz Yupo paper in stock. It's 5x7. That's a great size. When you're just starting, you could cut that in half and use it so that you practice. And also remember, if you create something you don't like with the Yupo paper, totally put alcohol ink all over it and start over again. If you don't like what you made, you can practice with the same sheet over and over and over again. So keep that in mind until you're happy with what you have. And it goes along, and that way it lasts a long time. So Kelly does have the Yupo paper in stock. Perfect. Okay, guys, I'll see you later. Thanks for joining me tonight. Take care. Bye-bye.